Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today for our NUIT Tech Talk on linking up with fellow faculty and staff. I'm Christina Bello with the NUIT Communications team and have with me today Steve Ewald and Dave Christensen. Before we start the presentation today, if you're having any trouble hearing me or our presenters, make sure your volume's adjusted accordingly. If you're using headphones or speakers, just make sure your volume's up all the way. Also, make sure you've closed any applications running in the background that are connected to the internet, email, any other web browsers you might have open. We're going to do some demonstration today, so that'll just give you the best connection for our presentation. If you have a question at any time, you can type it into the Q&A box down here, and we'll answer those questions throughout the presentation. After the presentation, we'll also give you an opportunity to download the PowerPoint that we're going to go through. There's some great tips and links in there, as well as some walkthroughs. So that will be helpful if you want to refer to that after the presentation. We're also recording this, and we'll post this later today or tomorrow. And we'll send everybody who registered a link to that as well, so you can watch it or share it at your leisure. But before we get started, we have two quick poll questions that we want to ask. And the first question is, how frequently do you work with colleagues outside your department? And you can select any of these options. Daily, often, occasionally, rarely, or never. So we're going to talk a little bit during the presentation today about how you can use the tools we're going to go through to work with colleagues around the university. We just want to get a sense of how often, how frequently people work with different departments. Okay. I'll give everyone one more moment to answer that question. Great. Looks like, as I thought, a lot of people do regularly work with groups outside their areas. All right. And we'll move on to the second question here, which is, which of the following tools do you use regularly? And this could be at work, outside of work. Just which of these tools are you familiar with using? Okay. And if you do select other there, if you just want to type it into the Q&A box and let us know what other tools you might be using, that will also help us during the presentation today. Great, looks like a lot of Lync users, good amount of Skype, Facebook. Okay. Great, some other suggestions are coming into the Q&A, so that's good to know as well. Great. All right, wonderful. Thank you all for your input there. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Steve and Dave. We're actually splitting up today's presentation into two kind of mini presentations. Steve's going to talk about Yammer first, and we're going to go through that. And then Dave is going to take over, and we're going to talk about Skype for Business and Lync. So with that, I will hand over to Steve.
Okay, so today, we're going to talk about Yammer, Microsoft social networking offering for the enterprise that two of you use regularly. So I'd really like to meet the two of you that are using it regularly. So just here's a brief overview. We're going to talk about some of the current collaboration tools that you guys are familiar with, try and get a sense of where there might be gaps, and then talk about Yammer and give a quick demo of how it works. So currently, of course, most of us are using Exchange email and calendaring as our primary means. Right. Obviously, unlike email, the thing about Skype for Business is that it's instant messaging. It's sort of real-time communication, no delays. That's sort of the benefit of that. We have SharePoint for document management, list management, collaboration, sharing. Listserv and bulk mail, which predate Exchange, which is part of the reason they're still around, but they also perform a little bit different of a function. Large blasts of email, and then sort of self-service join, leave, group email. Again, there's been overlap with Exchange there. And last is Canvas, which is not, obviously strictly a staff tool. It's supposed to use faculty and students, but Yammer is not strictly a staff tool either, so that's why it's included here. And then, as we saw, there are other non-university managed tools like Slack, GroupMe, WhatsApp. Some of those can be similar to Skype for Business in that they're more real-time communication tools. They're messaging platforms versus collaboration or social platforms necessarily. So in terms of trying to identify the gaps that Yammer might fill, with email lists, they require setup and maintenance. With listservs, they're not always super visible in terms of how to join, what exists, how much is it used. A lot of time you'll join an email list because it looks interesting, you think it appeals to you, and then you don't get any emails to it for months. Skype is good at one-on-one or sort of ad hoc group discussions, but ongoing conversations that can go on for weeks or months, it's not great at. And it's sort of it's ad hoc, it's up and it's down and it's gone. Even though you do have conversation history, it's not sort of meant to be an ongoing conversation. But the big thing for Yammer is probably discussion discovery and reaching out to a broad university audience. Okay, so Yammer, it's been described as Facebook for the enterprise. It was a company that was purchased by Microsoft in 2012, and they've just started to integrate it into Office 365 over the last year or two. The familiarity that you guys have with Office 365 is probably just for the free Office downloads for home use. But there's other products that are part of Office 365 that we're looking into rolling into the fold at the university. Yammer's sort of the first one, and it's sort of beta, sort of not. It's a discussion tool that's more likely to replace email lists than it is Skype, like we said. But the important thing to note about Yammer is it's the social aspect. It's less formal. You're not required to participate. You're not required to check in every day. If somebody mentions you, you can just ignore it. It's not like you get an email from your boss, you have to respond. If you get a mention on Yammer, or if there's a discussion that might include you, you're not required to participate.
So if your boss mentions you on Yammer,
yes, if your boss is on Yammer, then you probably should be on Yammer. But the big thing about it is that it's very voluntary, sort of open discussion, voluntary. Take the parts you like and leave the rest. And who can log into Yammer, who can use Yammer, we'll demo how to log in a moment. But there's two things you need. You need a university email address that ends, at Northwestern, at U, at Law, or at Kellogg. If there's a domain that you think we're missing that you'd like to see included, just let us know and we'll work on adding it. But those are the big ones right now. And then you need a valid NUIT and password. The authentication, as you'll see, does take place, through the university, at the university. So if you leave the university, if you don't have a valid NUIT and password, you can't log into Yammer anymore. You can't see the old discussions.
And so this isn't something else they have to remember another password for either,
right. Yeah, you only have to remember your NetID and password. You don't need a Yammer password. And we'll show you that can be kind of tricky when you first log in, making sure that you click the right login button. Otherwise, Yammer tries to make you create an account and everything. You don't want to do that. It's all through the university. Great. Yammer also has the potential to share content inside the Northwestern Yammer network with people outside the university. It's a feature that we're looking at, seeing how useful it is, seeing if people would like to share things with other organizations, share conversations. For the moment, there's not a lot of use that we're seeing with that feature, but it is something that's coming and being built out by Yammer.
Great. All right.
Okay.
So we'll switch over to screen sharing here.
Sure.
So Steve, if you want to share your screen there.
Sure. So I'm going to start actually the university SharePoint site.
Go back. Sorry. And
sorry. Let me share my screen first. That'd be helpful.
Great. Okay.
Okay.
And I'll just mention real quick, there's an option up at the corner here if you want to make this full screen just to get a little bit more detail as Steve does the walkthrough. And if you can shrink that back down if you have a question.
Okay. So first we're going to start with the Northwestern Share site, just share.northwestern.edu. We recently made a small change to replace the My Share, My Site link with the Yammer link to take you directly to Yammer. You can also get to it by typing, as the slide said, www.yammer.com/northwestern.edu. But if you click on this Yammer link, it'll redirect you. First time you go, it'll give you this little pop-up. You can say, don't show that message again. And it'll take you, well, it's supposed to take you to Northwestern's Yammer network. But if it doesn't, we can just type that in up at the top. And so the biggest thing that you should come away with from Yammer is that if you come to the Northwestern Yammer site, do not enter your work email. There's a login link right below that, and that's what you want to click on, the login link. And you should see a page like this.
Okay.
And so the first thing you do is you can type in your email address, and then when you click on the password field, it'll take you to Northwestern Online Passport. This is where you should be logging into Yammer. If you've done anything where it says set a password, or if it tries to email you an activation link, go back and make sure you click on the login link at the bottom here, the have an account.
And then it has the Northwestern at the top, but
Yep.
it's through the Northwestern account. Okay.
Yep. I don't want myself. My other guy. Force a habit. And if you type in your email address, get that redirect, let one of us know, and we'll look into it. We have seen a couple of users who don't get that redirect to the Northwestern Passport page. All right, so let's see. Okay, first time you log in, this is what you'll see. You get your, first name, last name, department, and job title.
And this doesn't automatically populate.
This is not right. This does not auto-populate with your university details. There's a limited amount of sync that we're looking into doing, but it would just literally be first name, last name, department, job title, and we sort of trust you to fill those in yourself for the moment. We can't sync pictures. We can't sync a lot of that information. It's just not supported. Microsoft, again, purchased Yammer and started integrating it relatively recently, so they're still building out the tools to make it a seamless experience. If you want to invite others to come join Yammer, you can put in their email addresses. You can pick one of the drop-downs, but you can always skip that. You can join groups that you may want to at first. We'll show how to browse and find groups later, but they sort of pre-select a few groups for you right off the top. One of those is the all-company group. Everyone's joined all-company by default. That's sort of, that's everybody. That's everybody in Yammer is all company. Skip that.
Or everyone at Northwestern.
Everyone at Northwestern,
is in Yammer.
Has logged into Yammer is considered all company.
Okay.
Okay. You can add a photo if you like. It doesn't have to, it probably should be a picture of you if you want to add something fun within reason. Again, this is a university resource, so use appropriately. I'm going to skip that. And then there's a Yammer Notifier desktop app that you can install. There's also an Android app, an iOS app, Windows Phone app, of course. You can sort of see how you're using Yammer and then decide if you want to branch out and install a mobile app and get notifications as they happen. When you first sign into Yammer, you will get email notifications about your activity on a regular basis. So it may just be the daily or weekly emails are enough for you to sort of stay involved.
And I know you'll probably go into this a little bit when you talk about groups, but there's options to set up email notifications for certain groups, certain actions. So you can kind of adjust the emails as you like.
Sure. So one thing you'll notice now that I'm logged in is there's a big purple bar at the top. That's how do you know that you're in Office 365 and you're in the Northwestern University Yammer sort of ecosystem, Yammer network. And for some reason, not quite everything is rendering properly. And this is my man of going to another browser. That's a lot of fun. A lot of the icons are missing. Yeah, so you see there's some icons missing that you'll see. We'll sort of soldier on. I think I know where most of the things are.
Yeah, we can talk through.
Yeah. So the first thing you might want to do is, browse. And it'll give you, again, a few select ones. So you can start with Northwestern Information Technology. If you're a part of the Information Technology group, you can just join that. It'll tell you you've joined. That's a public group. Anyone can join. And there's other groups. Let's see here. Let's try and find. I'm going to go to View More Groups and try and find a private group to join. I believe there's a. Let's see if I can find, where is it? Well, suffice it to say that there are private groups that when you try to join, it'll say a request has been sent, and that means that a group administrator has to approve it. We'll show you how to create a private or a public group right now. But yeah, you'll be notified if it's a private group that you can't join. So when you go to create your own group, there's two kinds of groups. There's an internal group and an external network. You always want to go with an internal group, and we can call this the Yammer demo group. You can add people. You can pre-populate the group if you want with coworkers or other Yammer users that you think might find it useful. And then there's public, which is everybody can see it, anybody can join, and private, where you can not only require that people get approval to join, but you can also say, I don't want it listed in the group directory. I don't want people to be able to find it unless I invite them specifically. So if you have a group that's just your team of 4 people, it probably doesn't need to be listed in the directory because all 4 of you are going to know about it when you add them right off.
Yeah.
And that's sort of just to keep the group directory clean. As you can imagine, if it gets a lot of use, you could end up with hundreds of groups. Everything's impossible to find. So give some consideration to whether or not you want it to be listed in the group directory. To cancel out of that. So let's go over to the Northwestern Information Technology group we just joined. You'll see it shows up on your left here. And if you click on it, you'll see conversations. Again, very similar to Facebook in terms of layout. You've got conversations and you've got responses. And you can go on. You can like, reply. You can follow the conversation. So if you say, I don't care about what the rest of the group is talking about, but this one conversation is of interest to me, you can follow it. Bookmark it, email it, hide it.
And you can share across groups as well, I think, if you're from content from one public group to another group.
Right, yeah, so if you click on the share button, you can post this, cross-post this to another group. And another thing you can do is you can send it to someone who may not be in Yammer and you think that they might find it interesting. So you can just start typing in an email address here. You can also share conversations with organizations outside of Northwestern. You can't share to like Gmail or Hotmail. It'll give you a little error if you try to do that. But if you know someone who's, say, at another school that's using Office 365, you can type in their email address and they can come participate in the conversation even though they're not part of the network. They won't see anything else, but they'll be able to see that conversation.
Great.
And of course, now that I'm here, I can post something. I can post a poll, post praise. I can attach files to a post. You can add topics sort of to tag things. One of the features they have is hashtag. They support hashtags.
Yep.
And I think it tried to, try to tag something else, but you can do hashtags just like Facebook or Twitter. You can do mentions, so you could, find someone you want to mention in a post, and then they'll get a notification because they got mentioned. They may not be a part of the group, but they'll know they got mentioned.
And I think if you look over on the right-hand side, there's some email options there as well under here. If you want to if you scroll down a little bit, you can subscribe by email.
Yes. You subscribe to the group by email. That's sort of a quick subscription. You can post the group by email. So I know that I've dealt with some faculty and staff in the past that like using discussion boards, but they don't have to go to a website. They can just reply to an email they get that posts to a thread, and it goes back and forth like that.
And if you like the format of listservs that are set up now, you can basically use this. Right. It'll look like a listserv, but it's a little bit easier to look at past posts. To kind of find that history. If
you prefer to do your searching via email,
yeah.
You don't have to search via Yammer, and if you've got a search method that works for you, you can probably find a way to support it.
Yeah. It also gives you the option to upload files, correct?
Yeah, you can upload files. That's okay. Yeah, you can upload files to a group. So if there's, you know, say, well, yeah, you can imagine anything for files that you want to post that you think is relevant. If you want to share a file with a group of people, and SharePoint's not necessarily the way you want to do it. Like we said, you know, SharePoint is usually it's for projects, it's for departments, it's for, you know, very predefined sort of university groups. If you've got a group that's not exactly predefined, it's not quite at the level where you need a SharePoint site where you need to be doing versioning and all that kind of stuff. You just want to post something, you can post that file here.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine for me, you know, I'm part of a communications and marketing group for representatives all over the university. We don't have a specific SharePoint group, but Yammer could be useful for kind of collaborating, working on a specific file, or just saying, hey, our department posted this, if anybody else wants to take this copy and share it with your area.
It's important to note that this is a cloud service, that, you know, it's run by Microsoft. You know, if you post a file here, we're not backing it up. You know, we're not having old versions. Somebody comes in and deletes it, that thing's gone forever. So that's sort of the thing. It's like, again, voluntary, sort of informal collaboration.
Good to know.
You know, we'll talk about this a little bit later, but sensitive data doesn't go here.
Yep.
There's a lot of places sensitive data doesn't go, but it certainly doesn't go in Yammer.
Yep. Good point.
And one of the other things, there's a last little link here for embed this feed in your site. You can mostly ignore that. You can do some, you can embed Yammer groups, Yammer conversations into SharePoint, for example. That's a little more involved, and if you're interested in that feature, you can certainly reach out to us. We're not going to talk about it here. But if you are a heavy SharePoint user and you'd like to see Yammer inside SharePoint, you can do that.
Cool.
So in addition to following a conversation, you can pick a person and you can follow a person. And if you follow that person, then whenever you'll see a lot of their posts. Oops, sorry about that. You see a lot of their posts. You may want to follow your coworker, see what other groups they're dabbling in. You may want to follow your boss, keep tabs on your boss. Or if there's some, you know, if there's a thought leader at the university that you're interested in seeing what they're working on, you can certainly follow them.
Great.
And so let's see if I can find it. Up here, there'd usually be 3 dots, I believe. And if you find those, and if you see those 3 dots on your browser and go to apps, you'll see there's a whole host of apps that somehow tie into Yammer data. One that I'm going to highlight here is, under my apps, is Leaderboard. And what Leaderboards will give you is, you know, most liked members, most replied to members, members with posts, most replied to conversations, to see active conversations that you may have missed. Again, you know, we're in the very early stages of using Yammer, so you don't have a lot in the last 28 days. Even if I go to all time, you know, you have some pretty light conversations, but you can sort of use these apps to follow what's active. And just, you'll see that like org chart is one of the apps. Now you can go to org chart and you might have expected it to be filled out, but it's not going to be filled out. We don't bring in a lot of the university information in terms of identities and structure. You can try adding, you can, you know, play around with this, but, you know, that data is going to be pretty much for you and anyone, you know, you want to sort of show an org chart to. I wouldn't use it as anything official. You know, the data doesn't really get reused anywhere useful. But there's a lot of apps that you can certainly play around with. You know, they've got information on the iOS and the Android app in there, but you can pretty much just go to your respective app store to download that.
Okay.
Right here, you'll see there's if you're logging, you see a notification screen that just has your messages. It's got, you know, new posts. Yeah, notifications that you may be getting via email. If you opt out of the emails, you'll see the notifications there.
Can you show just kind of the home page? I know it looks like there's discovery, all, and following at the top. What's the difference there?
Right, so discovery, you know, it's, again, to bring sort of the Facebook comparison back in, it's things that Yammer thinks you might enjoy. And at times it will seem random. But discovery is generally where you're going to start.
Okay.
Since we don't have a lot of content in Yammer right now, you might just go straight to all, which will show you everything that's happening, who's joining, what conversations are happening in public groups, all of that. What you don't want to do is go to all and then start typing about what you're working on, because that will via post to everyone in the Yammer network. And, you know, it's...
Right now, that's 700 plus...
Yeah, 700 plus people who will get an email saying, oh, so-and-so posted to the network. I hope it's interesting. What you want to do is, yeah, generally keep it to groups, unless, you know, and if you do create a group, it will show up in all company that you created a group. So if you're looking to start a conversation on something, you know, I created an Android users group because I have an Android phone. I don't need to then go and post in all companies saying, I just created an Android group. It'll show up in that all company feed or that discovery feed that a new group was created. So yeah, all company really doesn't have a lot of uses. You know, I think we've used it once to announce a change to Yammer because, well, we can't go posting in every group. It was, you know, sort of relevant to everybody. But, you know, if you do want to use all company, you know,
use it
judiciously, yeah, you know, and think about what would be appropriate.
Got it.
And sort of last, outside of the home page is this little online now thing in the bottom right hand corner. Online now doesn't mean online now. I would sort of ignore if it says someone is online now because, you know, you can find explanations on what the little green icons mean, but you can have like a little green phone icon. You think, oh, they're using the mobile app. No, that means they've installed the mobile app. So if you want to find someone to send them a message through Yammer, you can use the online now for that. But if you want to talk with someone, you know, just use Skype for Business. You know, that's your instant messaging platform. This is just sort of to find people. Got it. You know, you can also use the search, but the online now, you know, usually when I log in, I minimize it and I don't necessarily go back to it. That's how I use Yammer.
Got it. Can you just show once more, real quick, how to log in and what the login process is for somebody signing up? We just had a couple of questions about that.
Sure. I'll just close your next one. I'll start fresh. So probably the quickest way is just www.yammer.com/northwestern.edu.
Okay.
And you'll get presented with this page, and you want that login link, that little tiny login link at the bottom. Type in your email address. And then click on the password field. And it is a little unusual, and in the future, in another few months, I think it'll be a little cleaner, but for now, this is the way that the login process works. You click on the password field, and it'll say, oh, a Northwestern person, I know where to take them. And it takes you to this familiar page.
Got it.
Where you can type in your net ID and your password and sign in, and you're home.
Cool. Okay, great. All right, so if anybody else has any questions about Yammer, you can type them into the Q&A box down here, and we'll answer those if anybody has any of those questions. In the meantime, let's see. Okay, and then if you're having trouble logging in, type in the Q&A box. We'll follow up with you after the event. Hopefully, it shouldn't be too many people, but maybe one or two, I think, have a couple questions. But good to know, and thank you for letting us know. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Dave to talk about... Oh, and this is a good question and a thing to point out. You do not have to sign up first. You just click the login.
Just click, Yep. You should never have to create a password. If you find yourself thinking of a password, you've gone too far.
Yeah.
Just look for that little login button.
Yeah, and we know it's not 100% intuitive, but if you follow the steps that Steve went through and that we outlined in the PowerPoint, which again we'll give you to download, just click on the login button, enter your Northwestern email address, and it should prompt you to go to the passport.
Yeah.
That should be how it works.
And I know that, a lot of you have used third-party offerings, and there's things you can customize and things you can't.
Yeah.
And with the Yammer, a lot of the time, it's things you can't. It's getting better as Microsoft gets its hands a little deeper into it. But that's Yammer. You can.
It's honestly the features of it are worth kind of this little hiccup.
Right.
And once you're in, you can opt to stay logged in, and you shouldn't have to keep logging in.
Right.
But it is worth it.
I mean, I've been at the university a while, so but I think for a new person at the university, there's a lot of questions you have that you're not sure who can answer.
Yeah.
It's just like, we just did a thing, in NUIT, battery recycling. It's like, I had a question about battery recycling. I'm not sure I know who to ask, but Yammer's that kind of thing. Even if it's non-work related, if you want to talk about like Evanston restaurants, for example, there's all sorts of uses, for conversations you're not sure how to have.
Yeah. Okay, and so I will bring up Dave's presentation. So as I mentioned in the PowerPoint that we'll give you to download, there are all these slides about Yammer. Oops. So with that, I will hand it over to Dave. Yeah, it cut out the last time I tried to move it.
All right, I won't touch it. All right, basically, as Steve mentioned, that Lync is becoming a Skype for business. In fact, myself and other members of the collaboration team over the past several weeks have been, unknowing to the community, we've been updating the back-end Lync platform to Skype for business. And this Sunday night, we're making another change that will be introducing the Skype for Business client user interface for those users that are on a recent version of Lync, the Windows Lync 2013 client. So what I'm going to do is talk about getting started is for those users that maybe don't have Lync 2013 client yet for Windows, what to do to get the Lync 2013 client. And you may happen, there are some users, I do active monitoring, and some are still using the Lync 2010 client for Windows. You could certainly upgrade. We recommend it because as we move forward, while the Lync 2010 client will work in our environment, you certainly won't get the new features that you will receive if you do run the Skype for Business user interface. And then I want to just go over what's new in Skype for Business when you do use the Skype for Business Windows client, now that it's paired with the Skype for Business upgrades with the back end. Good? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
And then I'll do a side-by-side comparison of what the various screenshots of the Lync 2013 client looks like today and what its counterpart screenshots for the Skype for Business user interface. And then finally, there's some references to user resources that we have here at Northwestern that are public, as well as links to what Microsoft has published.
We actually had two questions already. Someone asked, will the Lync upgrade to Skype happen automatically, or do they need to have their department installed?
If you are on, and this is where it gets a little kludgy for Microsoft, if you are on the Lync 2013 Windows client as of this April, if some of you can recall, if you were on Lync 2013 as of this past April, there was a blip of a re-login that said, that basically is part of this patch from Windows Update. And if your machines are updated through Windows Update, it will happen automatically. And if you keep up with those updates. If you fall behind, you will have to update to a recent version, and then you will get the update.
Okay.
Now, this only applies to Skype for Business user interface at this moment, only for Lync 2013 recent client versions.
Okay.
It does not apply to Lync 2010. Unfortunately, it does not apply for Lync for Mac 2011.
That was actually the other question.
Okay. Yes. Yes, I know there's a lot of heartache, and it's being built from the ground up, or rebuilt from the ground up from Microsoft. At least that's the last updates that we've received.
And then just to follow up to that, if they're still on Lync 2010, how they should talk to their local IT about upgrading?
Yes, if you don't have administrative control of your workstation, I would talk to your local desk side support person. They can then at least get you on Lync 2013, and either Windows Update will then update you to a recent enough version, and then once that happens, when you log in, you'll get the flip then to the Skype user interface.
Got it. Okay, great.
So getting started, basically we have the link within this PowerPoint takes you to an internal or a public Northwestern article which has the install files for Lync 2013, whether if you run 32 or 64-bit, and your local IT support person can help you with that.
Okay.
If you're familiar with Lync, you know all you need is your NetID and your NetID password to log in. I did want to mention that if any of you use the mobile client for Lync, that if you are on iOS, I think it was last Tuesday or 2 weeks ago, that Microsoft pushed out the new update for the Lync mobile client to Skype for Business. So it has been rebranded, and it is available out on the Apple App Store. Android is not yet available. It's actually being beta tested right now, and it's due out later this year. And for those of you in the minority that still have a Windows phone, that has already been available, the Skype for Business mobile client. Okay. So what's new? For those of you that use the Skype consumer client, there's a lot of similarities with the look and feel, and that's where Microsoft is going with the branding, is that they want to have it more seamless. Since purchasing Skype a few years ago, now they're transitioning all the Lync to Skype for Business, and think of it as the business IM, client and solution, where Skype is more consumer and family oriented, but they want to try to make it all seamless. With that said, one of the big features of the upgrades that we've been doing from Lync to Skype for Business is that you have your Skype consumer directory integration, so that you can type in a name of a Skype user that you know, like their email address or name, but I'll mention it later, I'll touch on this later, but since you're searching a directory with millions of contacts, it is specific as you can get, the better, because then you'll get your results faster. There's a new call monitor feature if you happen to be like in a video or audio call that's peer-to-peer. It kind of keeps persistence pop-up but minimized on your desktop, so you don't lose when you want to end the call or you want to change features within the call as it's going on. There's new emoticons, which those of you familiar with Skype, the consumer version, they are more in line now with Skype for Business. And then one of the last features, which was a big ask from a lot of the community, is that there is now server-based conversation history. So what does that mean? Basically, if you do a desktop conversation with a peer, and then you happen to transition to your mobile client, that you can look in when you launch the mobile client, right on the first tab that you launch and you sign into, you get the recent conversation history, and then you can find that conversation history and pick it up, and you're not out of touch.
Okay.
All right, so right into the new features. So basically, I show on the left the Windows Lync 2013 client, and then on the right.
So left is what most people probably have in their computers now.
Correct. And I believe I maintain that consistency through all the screenshots. That the left side is Lync 2013, the right side is Skype for Business. Okay. So you'll see the difference in terms of some of the way the picture icon is on this screen, and the presence, where the chiclet is more round versus like a vertical bar, and you'll see some of the other. There's a blue title bar, which more of the Skype-ish colors scheme and everything. So, but for the most part, even like whether if it's people or meetings or your telephone or your recent, yeah, it's all the same. It's just a slightly different icon. If you hover over a contact, you'll get the quick menu. On the left is what you'll see today with Lync 2013, and on the right you'll see how it's changed with Skype for Business. And then one of the other big features in terms of look and feel is that for chats now in the Skype for Business client interface, it's bubble chatting. So those of you like on a mobile client, you certainly are familiar with IMing or texting, and you have like the mobile context and interface. Another feature is file transfer preview, that once the file is downloaded in an IM session, that you'll get a preview of that within that you'll see like on the right-hand page here. You'll see the the preview of the file that you happen to download.
Okay.
The meeting window has a little bit more branding that differences. They went with a darker background so that it just, the meeting, whether if you have content or your gallery view at the top, it stands out more. The icons in the bottom center are more consistent with consumer Skype and the color schemes. But all in all, it still has the same layout. You're not losing too much. The functionality is more at your fingertips, and you don't have to drill down into additional menus to get where you're going for. This is what I touched on earlier, the Skype consumer directory. If you happen to type a name in the search bar right here, you'll get these tabs to show up, and the second tab is the Skype directory. So what you would do is you would click that when you were done typing in a name or an email address, and then it would start searching. I did show at the bottom of the screen here a yellow box that'll pop up that if you did something very generic and just put John or Mary Smith, that you could have so many matches that you hit your buffer and you don't get every, you still might not find the person. It doesn't mean it's not working, it's just that you're not specific enough in your search criteria.
If they're searching for people at Northwestern, they can still use my contacts and they'll still search through the contacts they have within like the right.
The first tab is your link integration, and then the second tab is your Skype consumer. Yes.
Okay.
Like what I did to find mine is I tried my name first, and it actually didn't match. I just didn't see it in the list. So then I went with my email address that I have associated with my Skype account, and then it found it right away. And then you can add it, and then it's on your main contact list. It's not like in a separate tab. You can just group it differently if you want. For the call monitor, on the left is the full-size call monitor screen, rebranded, and on the right is the minimized version. And this is the new feature functionality that you get. That minimized window stays persistent, and it's up in front of all your windows. But you could still work, and now it's not taking up your whole screen. So if you wanted to multitask and you're on an audio call or video call, that you can still like access your other documents or multitask while you're in that call. Great. And of course, emoticons. There's animation on several of these. If you bring up the emoticon screen when you're in an IM session, you can hover over an emoticon and you can see what the animation is. And what I wanted to just highlight was that even though Lync is becoming Skype for Business, the features that you've grown accustomed to using today still are present, whether if you want to do IM, presence information, integration with Outlook calendaring, all that stays the same. Audio chat, desktop video conferencing, your mobile access and online meetings, none of that is changing. That functionality is all staying the same.
Great.
And then, like I said, here's some references on some public how-tos that we published at Northwestern, just installing the Lync client, and then Microsoft references below that.
Great. Okay. Any other questions about Yammer or Skype for Business? You can type them into the Q&A box and we'll answer those. We're actually going to wrap things up. We have a couple. Okay, so we just have a couple quick poll questions that we wanted to ask before we show you where to download the PowerPoint. But again, if you have any questions still, feel free to type them in. We'll either answer you as we're wrapping things up or we'll follow up with you later. So our first question is, did you learn something new during today's event? And as I always say, we always hope you learned something new. Yammer's pretty new at the university, so that's something we're really excited about and are excited to see people using. So if you have any questions about it, again, feel free to ask us about it. And Dave, we had a question while we're letting people answer this question. Can Lync on a Mac still interact with someone else with Skype for Business?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, Skype for Business is just the client interface changing. It's just, think of it as like a skin, and you can change the skin, but what's underneath the skin is still the same. So that's all. Your contacts, even though they may be using the Skype for Business client, are still your Lync contacts on a Lync for Mac, and you'll still be able to IM and do everything with them.
Got it. Okay, and we'll move on to the second question here. Is, do you plan to apply any of the information you learned at today's event? Either getting started on Yammer, starting with Skype for Business. And we did have a couple more questions about the Skype for Business. A great question. Someone asked about the Skype for Business directory and keeping that possibly separate from your personal Skype account. If that's an option, can you make your listing private?
Meaning if you add a
So
Skype,
if
you add a Skype consumer account to your full front page, you know, Lync contact list. The only thing I could recommend at this time is that, you know, because you can create custom groups, that you can group them all within, you know, say, this is my Skype consumer list or my private Skype or whatever you want to call it, and then you can minimize it. So if you happen to be desktop sharing or you don't want people to see that, but it's not a separate tab or anything at this time. It's just all within that list.
So I think what they're curious is basically keeping your personal contacts kind of out of the Skype for Business. Is that an option, or is it just kind of all one thing at this point?
Well, by getting the Skype for Business client, does not, even though you have the integration with the Skype directory, does not mean that all your Skype consumer directory contacts merge automatically and behind the scenes with your Northwestern Lync interface.
So they are two separate kind of accounts. Okay.
Right, and they don't appear. So like say like, you know, if you wanted, like say you had 10 contacts on your Skype consumer contact list, just because you are now Skype for Business does not, and that there is integration, does not mean that those 10 magically appear in your contact list. That's why you need the Skype consumer directory if you ever wanted to initiate a peer-to-peer IM session or audio. And by the way, IM, audio, video between Northwestern and now consumer Skype will work as long as the Skype person is on a Skype consumer desktop client. That it will work.
And great, so it looks like we answered that question. And I have one more poll question and one more question about Lync that I will ask you in a minute, Dave. So the last poll question we have for you is, on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being very satisfied, how would you rate today's event? And again, we always look to improve these events. If there's anything we can do to make these more useful, we know you take time attending these, do let us know. We can always make adjustments to everything. So just let us know if there's anything we can do to improve. And the last question we had about Lync is, can Lync 2010 connect with Lync 2013 in Skype for Business? So if your computer currently has Lync 2010, you can still talk with other people who have Lync 2013 or the Skype for Business.
But the new look and feel and the new features that I went through in today's presentation, you will not have that functionality. Your functionality will still be the same as what it always has been.
Okay. And just a reminder, we are recording this and we'll post it later today or tomorrow. We'll send everyone who registered a link to that so they can watch it at your leisure if you want to share it with colleagues. And I think those were all the questions. Covered Mac, we covered the directory, Lync 2010. And if you are having any trouble downloading Lync 2013, you can submit a support ticket and we'll follow up with you on that. It might just be a quick and easy thing to resolve.
Well, I know that we were updating the back-end files.
Okay.
So it could be that's what they were
just
doing.
happened to be doing while we were talking about it. Okay. All right. So give it a couple hours. Try it again. Hopefully it will work that time. If not, put a support ticket in with the IT Support Center and we'll follow up with you there. All right. And with that said, to download a copy of the presentation, you can just click this PDF file here, click Download Files, and it should open up in a new browser window for you that you can refer to later. And again, we'll post this on the NUIT website as well, so you can download it there if you don't want to download it right now. And with that, I will say thank you, Steve and Dave. It was a great presentation, and thank you all for joining us today.